Dear children, once again very good morning to you all and rather welcome you all in this class today. Hope you are all performing well and you are putting your maximum efforts today. So okay, as part of the previous discussions, we were having the case of our magnetic effects of current and magnetism we discussed. And regarding the magnetic effects of current and magnetism, you all have managed to so this is 25th today and we were having the moving coil. Good morning to all of you. Very good morning to all of you, dear. So we were having with us the case of moving coil galvanometer, dear children, and we were to have the conversion of that moving coil galvanometer, that is MCG, into your ammeter and your voltmeter. Let us proceed with that revision part. Uh, so, dear children, विशाल आई कुड नॉट सी वो बच्चों की लिस्ट नहीं दिख रही मुझे अच्छा ये बच्चों को हाँ जी मैं भी कर दी ऑटो वाला कर दी म्यूट भी कर दी बच्चों so dear children, let us have the moving coil galvanometer and thank you and let us convert this moving coil galvanometer into our ammeter and voltmeter so we were to begin with the conversion of galvanometer into first we will have ammeter. Now dear children, before we begin with the discussion of the device ammeter,
the obvious question arises that do we need we must have
the galvanometer. Galvanometer can serve the purpose of detecting the current, and if we connect the galvanometer in the circuit, we automatically will come to detect the magnitude of the current. Then why do we need ammeter? Now, dear children, you might have seen that in the case of the galvanometer, the galvanometer is having a large resistance with it in comparison to the ammeter. If we will be connecting the galvanometer in the place of the ammeter in order to measure the current, then sometimes what happens is that with a galvanometer, it due to the large resistance, it will not record the correct value of the current because of its own large resistance with it. Second important point is that on account of being heavy resistor or heavy resistance of the galvanometer, because sometimes the galvanometer may even get damaged or burnt during the process in which you are having this galvanometer attached in the circuit. So that is why we need this device called ammeter. Now the point arises that how we can get the galvanometer converted into ammeter. Dear children, imagine that this is the setup of your galvanometer. This way, in order to get it converted into the ammeter I will be connecting a small resistance in parallel with this galvanometer, and this we term as beta shunt resistance. Dear children, capital G, this is the resistance of the galvanometer. This is having its own value. And as we have already talked about, this galvanometer is having large resistance in comparison to this S. Suppose we are in the laboratory. When you are in the laboratory and working beta, in order to have this particular apparatus used by means of some setup beta, then you automatically come to know that galvanometer is having a resistance of the order of 100 ohm, 80 ohm, or at least more than 70 or 50 ohm. So in this manner, you can well conclude that the resistance of the galvanometer is high in comparison to this small shunt. Now, imagine that you are having this current sent towards this particular setup or device Now this whole device, this is called ammeter. This dotted line in this setup indicating this box, this is called your ammeter. Suppose that you supply a current I to this whole setup of the ammeter, and out of this current Ig current is flowing through the galvanometer, and remaining current, that is then I minus Ig, you can regard it as Is also, that is the current through your shunt resistance Now dear children, when you are using this setup as such you will automatically come to know that this device and this, actually these are the two resistors. Because these are connected in parallel to each other, the voltage across the two will remain same. And voltage is nothing but I into R. Voltage across the galvanometer, this is equal to the voltage across the shunt, just because they are parallel to each other. And voltage across the galvanometer V, this is equal to I into R. V is equal to I into R, and R is equal to your capital G. And here this current is, dear children, I minus Ig into resistance is your S in this case. Now from this particular setup, you can calculate the value of the shunt resistance required in order to get it converted. So dear, S is equal to Ig, current through the galvanometer branch, divided by I minus Ig, this current, and of course it is all getting multiplied by this capital G. So this is how you get the shunt resistance calculated. Now proceeding with this point of discussion still ahead, you see these two are connected in parallel to each other. And when I talk about the effective resistance I will be writing R effective. This is equal to 1 upon G plus 1 upon S. As these are getting connected in parallel, we will be having the effective resistance calculated in this manner And you just reciprocate this relationship and you will get that R effective. This is equal to G into S upon G plus S So this is the effective resistance of your device. Now, important point about this effective resistance and all that. But as we were talking about this point that here your galvanometer resistance is far more than the resistance of your shunt or the connected parallel resistor. So I will say that as a special case, special case, because capital G is far more than your shunt resistance S of the coil connected in parallel. What we will have, if we want to investigate about this effective resistance, this will also be equal to then capital G into S. In the denominator, G plus S will be approximately equal to G, because S is very small. G is very less. Suppose S is between the half ohm and G is 100 ohm. So 100.5 or 100 in comparison to this product. This product is also there. That is between one and the same thing. So this will be equal to your capital G only beta. And furthermore, beta, if this capital G is getting cancelled, your effective resistance of the device, it becomes equal to the shunt resistance. This is the approximate value. It is not exact value. It may be a little bit more or less. Now, you can well conclude that beta, when you are making use of this device, that is the ammeter, the plus point is that it is having very low resistance. What is the benefit of this low resistance? Because when we will be connecting it in the circuit, due to the low resistance beta, it will make minimum use of the current for its own operation. Secondly, all the current will be bypassed through this particular device, and it will give you exact reading of the current. Imagine one thing more. Suppose that you want to find out the flow of electric current through a particular set of the connection or a wire. You connect the ammeter. What will happen? The whole current will pass through the ammeter, and then that will be flowing through the given wire, because you have connected it in pair. So dear children, when all the current will be passing through this ammeter, it will give you the exact measurement. Secondly, due to its small resistance beta, it will not get damaged, and it will allow the maximum passage of the current through this particular device. And we take finally one thing more, dear students, beta, if we have the case of an ideal ammeter, it has got with a zero resistance beta. Ideal ammeter, it is having with a zero resistance. Keep this thing in mind. Practically, it may be appearing difficult, but with at the same time, when we talk about the ideal resistor or ideal, sorry, ammeter, its resistance is definitely with a zero. Now, after this conversion of the galvanometer into the ammeter, let me have it converted into the voltmeter. Voltmeter. In order to convert the galvanometer into the voltmeter, imagine that beta, here you are having your original galvanometer G as such. Now what we will be doing, that we will be connecting a heavy resistance coil in series with this galvanometer. Let it be a large resistance, and let it be your galvanometer, and beta, this whole setup, this setup rather, this is termed as beta your voltmeter. And imagine that this is the resistance, say ये resistance को आप बेटे S भी बोल दो या R बोल दो, it will play one and the same role. But because we have reserved the term S for the shunt, and here this is having large resistance, I will be marking it as the R. Now, dear children, imagine that this is the current IG, galvanometer current flowing through the galvanometer branch beta. Furthermore, we will be saying that in this case, your V potential difference across this particular whole setup will be equal to I into R. And R in this case, beta, effective resistance of this combination is R plus G, and V, it will be equal to Ig into R plus G. First step, we require to calculate R, that how much resistance we should connect in series with this galvanometer in order to get it converted into the voltmeter. Shift this Ig to the left hand side, V upon Ig, this is R plus G, and R will be equal to V upon Ig minus G. So in this manner, we can get the value of the resistance R calculated, which is required in order to find out the value of the coil resistance to be connected with. One thing more, bete, effective resistance we have calculated in this situation. But at the same time, beta, if we talk about the ideal voltmeter, it has got beta infinite resistance. Ideal voltmeter, it is possessing infinite resistance. Ideal ammeter is possessing zero resistance, beta. So these are the two conversions. Sometimes on the basis of this conversion, question may be there in the examination. So you are to be extra careful regarding this conversion and all that. After this conversion, let me talk about bar magnet, its magnetic dipole moment for few minutes. Beta. Let us focus upon the bar magnet and the magnetic dipole moment and all the relevant terms. I'm not going into the too much details because we are just focusing on the revision part. So important points beta जो needed हैं, I will be focusing upon that too much. Now beta bar magnet. Imagine that beta here this is the case of your magnet. You always keep in mind that beta there are the two poles of the magnet, north pole as well as the south pole, and the magnetic length, it is the separation between the north and the south poles. This is a magnetic length. And dear children, here this is your geometrical length of this bar magnet. Always keep in mind that the magnetic length, it is it is 6/7 of the geometric length. It is just because the north pole and the south pole, these are not at the exact ends, but these are a little bit inward, as is indicated in the diagram. And once more, beta, let it be the center of your magnet. And as we all know that, beta, in order to calculate the magnetic dipole moment and all that, we always take this distance to be even integral multiple 2L, 2A, 2X, something like that, because we will be sometimes making one half of it, sometimes we will be making some other relevant adjustments over here. So in order to just avoid the case of the unnecessary fractions that may be there faced during this discussion, we generally take it as 2L. Magnetic dipole moment, capital M. This is between magnetic pole strength of the either pole multiplied by magnetic length. I would over here beta give a small emphasis on your magnetic field also. Magnetic field, keep one thing in mind, magnetic field due to a single pole, north pole or south pole having magnetic pole strength equal to small m. That will be beta equal to mu naught upon 4 pi m1 of the pole strength you are talking about, and m2 the pole strength of the other pole about which you are calculating the magnetic strength at that point divided by square of the distance between the two. So this is also called a Coulomb's law in magnetism. This is the magnetic force. So furthermore, I was not supposed to focus upon this, but at the same time, I was just refreshing your idea that we might be knowing the Coulomb's law in magnetism, something like that. It is exactly equal to the Coulomb's law in electrostatics, where we were taking the case of the two charges. Here, in place of the two charges, we are taking into account the two poles with the pole strength M and M. Because this is a single magnet, the pole strength is expected to be same. And if I place some other magnet over here near this magnet, then the pole strength will be totally different from the pole strength of this particular bar magnet. So here, in this case especially, magnetic dipole moment is equal to the magnetic pole strength into magnetic length. Dear children, this is a vector quantity. It is not scalar is it it's all right now beta खुशी beta it's right now bete yes bete I am audible खुशी now bete okay nice sometimes bete when I will be let me repeat that point once again beta previously we were cutting it along this side as a result of that bete magnetic length was becoming one half of its initial value and the magnetic dipole moment obviously according to this mode of calculations becomes one half. If we cut it along the this particular line that is along the axis, we make two pieces lengthwise, then the new magnetic dipole moment m dash, it will be equal to now with a pole strength will become one half beta because you are cutting it along the poles or the axis and magnetic length it is not at all going to change. This is 1 by 2 m into 2l. This is 1 by 2 m. So dear all, m dash is one half of m once again. Now beta, dear students beta, over here I would once again suggest to you that beta in this place over here magnetic dipole moment can be calculated beta when you cut the magnet vertically and secondly when you cut it along the axis beta. This is wholly solely up to you. Sometimes the examiner may be asking that also. After this beta we have a little more mathematical interpretation related to the magnet and the torque acting on the magnet placed in the uniform magnetic field and all that. I would try my level best to finish this chapter today positively so that next time we may begin with the chapter of discussion of your choice, especially during the revision part. We are always focusing upon your choice today. Now let me have it a magnet in a uniform magnetic field. Rather, I was to talk about the torque acting on a magnet. Imagine this is the magnetic field acting in this particular plane. Magnetic field beta, it can be in the plane of the paper, in the plane of the board, or it can be perpendicular to the plane indicated. It can be directed inward as well as outward. In the plane of the board, it is indicated in this way with the help of parallel equidistant lines beta. And when we talk about the magnetic field uniform perpendicular to the plane of the blackboard and directed inward, it will be indicated by the cross signs put at equal distances from each other. And when it is perpendicular to the plane of the blackboard and directed outwards, that is towards you, then it will be indicated by the dot signs all across the board surface at equal distances from each other. Now, because this is the existing magnetic field, imagine that B is the strength of this magnetic field. Magnetic lines of force start from the north and terminate or towards the south pole. We don't know where the north pole of this uniform magnetic field is, and we don't know where the south pole or where the lines are ending. We simply say that here we have maintained uniform magnetic field with us. Now I will place a magnet, rather a bar magnet, in this uniform magnetic field, and beta, imagine south pole is along this direction, north pole is along this direction. North and south, because these are the poles of the same magnet, let their pole strength be indicated by small m. Pole strength into magnetic field, it will give you the magnetic force acting on either pole. It will be equal to beta pole strength into the magnetic field B beta, and on the same lines here, this is the south pole, it will be attracted by this north polarity. It will be equal to beta m into B, but over here the direction is opposite to that in the previous case. Now, dear children, imagine that here this is the magnetic length beta 2L, and this is making an angle say theta with the uniform magnetic field, and furthermore here this is the perpendicular distance between the two forces. You can see one force is this, second force is along this line, and this is going to be the perpendicular distance between the two forces. So this is between you 2L sine theta. Dear students, torque acting on it, tau, this is equal to either force multiplied by the perpendicular distance between the two forces. So torque will be equal to, this is m into B, and this is 2L sine theta beta. When we will be getting it solved, we will get torque is equal to m into 2L into B sine theta, and obviously this m into 2L is nothing but capital M B and sine theta, and beta in vector form it may be put as m vector cross this B vector. So this is the torque acting on the bar magnet when beta it is placed in the uniform magnetic field beta. And I'm quite hopeful beta that over here we can well manage that what is the direction of this torque acting, because it will be given by the cross product of the two vectors, that is m vector as well as B vector. So from m vector towards the V vector, you can draw the line, and that line will be giving you the magnetic dipole moment, torque, magnetic field, and all that. So just apply the cross product of the vectors in order to calculate the direction. Sometimes what happens is that you are asked to calculate the energy stored in this bar magnet also, exactly on the same lines as you are proceeding with the calculations in the case of your electric dipole moment and all that. Exactly on the same lines we can integrate, we can calculate small work done, then we can integrate. Let me have a few more steps added over here. But when you place this bar magnet in this uniform magnetic field, suppose due to this torque acting on the bar magnet, the bar magnet beta, as you are seeing, this is present as such beta. Suppose this is the present location. Let us imagine that it gets tilted at a small angle d theta. It is now at this place at a small angle d theta, it will tilt. And in order to have this tilted at an angle small d theta, a small work done dW will be there, and that will be equal to torque into the angle through which it is getting tilted. tau d theta. So small amount of work done will be equal to mb sine theta and with it d theta. So let me manage the space over here. And when it is so, we can calculate the total work done also beta. Total work done will be equal to integral of this small work done, and it will be integral mb sine theta d theta, theta 1 to theta 2. These may be substituted as the limits. Suppose initially your magnet is making an angle theta 1 and then it is making an angle theta 2 beta with the magnetic field. We just substitute the values and this work done will be stored in the form of potential energy. It will be mb integral of sine is minus cos theta, theta 1 to theta 2 may be the limits. These we may put beta. So was your potential energy. Now, dear children, marching towards the dead end of this chapter,